everyone, this is Goodknits and I'm Sheri. I am a Canadian expat living in Amsterdam and I've been here for 7 years, coming up on 8 actually next February. Today is episode 23 and I do have quite a lot to share today, but I actually think I'm going to spend the vast majority of my time talking through my fall knitting plans and kind of where I'm at with that. When I recorded my fall knitting video, I kind of had everything open and I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to work on yet. My plans are becoming a bit more concrete now. I've got some yarn ideas, and so I just wanted to talk them through because I'm struggling a little bit on some things and I could really use your advice. Other than that, I do have 3 whips to share today, no finished objects, and 1 small yarn acquisition. I was hoping some of my other yarn would arrive, but it didn't get here in time, so that's okay. Hopefully we can keep this a little bit on the short and sweet side today. So before getting into my whips today, let's maybe quickly talk about what I'm wearing. This is my Micaela sweater by Goodknits, and I knit it in Filcolana Tilia in the color Antique Rose. I showed this on the last podcast episode if you want to go hear more about it. I did mention in that episode that the neckline was bothering me and I was thinking of putting an elastic or ripping it out. I have since put in some elastic. It helps cinch it in a little bit. I have decided I'm just gonna wear it for probably a few weeks, see how I feel, because I was thinking it was like a little bit too chunky for what I was looking for in a mohair sweater. Now that I've had a chance to wear it a few times, I think it's not even so much the chunkiness of the collar that is bothering me, it's how low and wide it's sitting. So the elastic did help with that. It's kind of come up a little bit. I have been wearing it quite a bit, so it's obviously not bothering me enough to not wear it out. So no changes right now. Let's just sit with the elastic, see how that feels, and I'll come back to it. Other than that, I'm really loving the sweater. I think the sleeve length has been perfect. The only challenge with these sleeves not decreasing a lot and cinching in is then when you go to like roll them up. So we went to play, my husband and I, jeu de boule, and trying to play with these sleeves was really challenging. So I actually had to fold them up to try to get them to stay because otherwise they were just getting in my way. So probably also not the best outfit I could have worn for an activity like that, but what are you gonna do? So I think just day to day wearing without getting a little bit sporty, these sleeves have been perfect. The body length is great. It works perfectly with all my pants. It's just a matter of getting the neckline right. Otherwise, I'm really happy with the color, the fit. So I think I finished this, a week ago, and I've now worn it at least 4 times in probably 10 days. Not bad. I think that, makes a fairly successful finished object. Today I'm actually going to start with the piece that has been on my needles for the longest period of time, and that is the Braidy loop cardigan. And I made a lot of progress on it. So last time I showed it, I had started the sleeve. I completely forgot to put in a progress keeper, but I'm going to say I was roughly here, and I have since basically finished the sleeve. So the only reason this has try-on tubing in it is I decided to do a mid-project block just to get a sense of how the overall fit was, because when I did my gauge swatch for this, it showed that the yarn didn't grow a lot. So this is made in a Sayer Jensen and a Sayer mohair held together in the color 2S. I'm knitting it in a size small. And gauge is supposed to be 18 by 27, I think. And my pre-block gauge was 19 by 27 and my post-block was 18 by 27. So very, very little growth. And especially on the row gauge, I knew that I wasn't going to get a lot of extra length out of this. So before casting off my sleeve, I really wanted to learn from past mistakes and not make my sleeves too short because it's a pain to have to go back. And on this one, especially with this nice cable detail, I knew that trying to go back and pick up stitches and kind of regraft everything together would be more of a hassle. So I really want to get this right on the first try, and better to do it on this sleeve and then know that the second sleeve will be right. So this is actually still drying, so I don't know if I should put it on. Yeah, I will. Okay, I'm gonna throw it on over this. It's not gonna be the best representation. It's been drying for like 3 days and it's still not ready. So this is where the sleeve's at. I think it's hitting the perfect point on my hand. So I just have to do the 2 rows of double knitting and then the Italian bind off. Obviously, when I also add the button band, it is gonna like probably ride up a little bit with the sleeve, but I think I wouldn't want it any longer than this or it's gonna get in the way. So I think also lengthwise, it's really good. I think it's just gonna be a nice, like, cozy, kind of oversized sweater without being too oversized. So I didn't really have any issues with this. I was having a knitting date with my friend Karen and I got a bit distracted and ended up, so on this sleeve, you have like your 2 cables and then this just 8 stockinette stitches, and I wasn't paying attention and we were on the call and all of a sudden I realized I did a cable in there, and so then I had to try to go reverse back, which ended up being not as easy as I thought it would be. But other than that, I think the sleeve went really smoothly. It just took a really long time. It was also very hard on my hands. And especially once I got to the ribbing, I ended up changing to my Gu shorty needles that Francesca, an Italian knitter, was kind enough to send me a few months ago. What I ended up doing by accident is, so you knit the rib on 4mm and the body on 4.5. And I first ended up taking out the really tiny shorty, which I think is 5 centimeters. And I was like, oh wow, I don't remember it being so hard to knit with these, because the first experience I had when I used them, I forget on what top a few months ago, I was like, oh, this actually isn't as bad as people make it out to be. So when I was doing it on those really tiny 5 centimeter tips, it was very difficult. And then I thought to myself, wait, I'm pretty sure that there's also 8 centimeter tips in there, so I should go double check, and sure enough, there was. So these are much easier. I find 8 centimeters is not so hard on the hand. These are definitely more than long enough to do the ribbing without feeling like I don't have enough space to spread the stitches. I do recommend these compared to Magic Loop. I'm using Magic Loop for my penny gloves right now, and I just am reminded of how much I hate Magic Loop. I just can't get into a rhythm with it. So if you are like me and you also don't like double pointed needles, I would say these are worth the investment if you're doing enough garments that require a smaller circumference to knit. I know they also have a much smaller size. I think it's the red pack, which is like the sock needle kind of sizes. I don't know if I would want to be knitting a sock on these because you would need to use the tiny needles, and I've only ever used a very small circumference fix set once and I hated the experience. So I think, you know, at 4mm on 8 centimeter tips, it's not so bad. I would definitely recommend these if you don't like the other 2 methods. And I know that there's more than that. There's also the kind of curved cable needles in that. I've never tried them. I am gonna be moving on next to the, well, once it's dry, I'm gonna move on to the double knit button band. I just wanna push forward and get that done. I also think it's really gonna change the overall look. Somebody commented on my last podcast episode letting me know they also just knit the Braidy loop and followed the Handmade by Florence tutorial for her step-by-step cardigan. And in that, she does the double knit button band with the integrated buttonholes. And yeah, she gave me some good tips on the pickup rate that I should do and how following that video worked perfectly. So I went and watched that. It definitely seems tedious and like it's going to be a very slow process, at least on the side where the buttonholes are. But I think it's going to be fine otherwise. It doesn't look like anything that I'm not capable of. I am actually kind of excited to move on to that step and learn that skill. And then I'll move on to the last sleeve, which hopefully I can just do that in a weekend. So I'm really excited. That one is making so much progress. I can really envision it now being a final piece. I don't know if I'm ready quite yet to move on to the Braidy loop sweater after kind of doing this cable pattern for a while again. I think I'm gonna need a bit of a break. So if I do the sweater, which I fully intend to do at some point, I think I will leave it closer to end of fall or move it into my winter knitting plans. Just trying to think if I missed anything. No. Now moving on to the second whip that has been taking the vast majority of my knitting time. Like every spare moment that I've had, I've been knitting on this and I just can't put it down. This is my Ppoppo Jacket by Egg Yo Knit. And I have been working on this for a week and a half and I'm already a good chunk of the way into the body. So I have, I think, 35 or so centimeters left to go. And then I'll be able to do the I-cord and the sleeves. So this is a pattern knit in double moss stitch. It's a jacket, so you're not doing button bands or anything. It's just meant to be left open. It's super lightweight. I am knitting it in like the best yarn combination. I can't recommend this enough. So it's the Lanagato VIP yarn in the color 13737, and it's labeled as a brown, but I really see this as more of kind of a rust color. It definitely has a reddy orange tone to it. And I'm holding it with the Essayer mohair in the color 69. So they are just making this beautiful dark combination. It's very rich. It feels perfect for fall. I am just going to insert video of this so that I can put it on over a white top and really show you how it pops. But I think this color is perfect for me. I can picture it with so many items in my wardrobe. I think it's going to be able to just be thrown on over absolutely anything. I also love how the yarns are working together in this stitch pattern. And I really thought that this would end up being a very tedious knit because double moss stitch is basically 1 by 1 rib. You're having to change every stitch. But for some reason, this is really keeping my attention, and I've really needed that in the kind of last few weeks. A piece where it's not super complicated, but I can just kind of sit and knit on it somewhat mindlessly. And this has really fulfilled that need. What do I want to say about this? The way that you knit it is you do your back triangle panel, you do your increases to, make that trapezoid shape. And then you pick up your right front panel, knit down, left front panel, knit down, and then join the body. I did find, so I said last episode, the way that Aegyo writes her patterns is a little bit confusing. And it's just because she doesn't provide a lot of detail. So sometimes she'll say knit to X amount of centimeters or inches, and then other times, like on the body, she doesn't mention at all what length you're supposed to get to, and it's just, even the way she writes the body increases confused me at first because it was like, oh, repeat 2 times for a total of 3 times. And then I realized, okay, the way she wrote the step before, which was for the body decreases, she only worded it once, but there's actually 2 sections of body decreases on 1 round. So I assume that's where she means do 2 decrease rounds. So repeat that pattern again on 1 row, and then do your decreases within the suggested, what word am I looking for? Within the suggested row amount. So, 15 or whatever rows, do another round of decreases. And you're also doing decreases and increases at the same time while also working edge stitches next to, where are they? These body. So you see I have 2 stitch markers there. So it's because you're doing these kind of seam stitches, which she's calling edge stitches. And on every round, depending on if it's a wrong side or right side, you need to be doing them a specific way, while then also remembering that you're doing increases at a specific increase rate, and then you're doing decreases at a completely different decrease rate. So all those three things are happening at the same time, which it didn't take me long to get that into my head and be able to memorize it and just kind of work mindlessly on it. But I have gone back and reread the pattern a few times just to make sure that I'm not messing up. And then I'm just tracking my increases and decreases with stitch markers so that I know when I need to do them. The other thing is I purchased this pattern through her website back in April or May, and I caught a mistake in it. So on the front panel section on row 4, it accidentally has the knit 1 purl 1 for the moss stitch reversed. And I didn't realize until I was a few rows in, and then I was like, oh, this is looking like 1 by 1 rib, which it's not supposed to. So then I had to go back, tink it, and then realized which row it was actually not working on. So I did send her an email and she confirmed that has since been fixed, but because I purchased through the website, which is her Shopify site, I think she has struggles doing pattern updates through there. So she said her patterns are now on Ravelry. The correct version is there. So if you bought it through Ravelry, I imagine you would have gotten the updated version. She since sent it to me, but it's just maybe something to keep in mind if you bought this pattern through her website, and especially any length of time ago, you may have the same version that I had, which does have at least one mistake in it. So just maybe give that a double check, and also just trust yourself on double moss stitch. Like on every right side row, you are supposed to be starting with a different stitch than the last right side row. So if you understand how double moss stitch works, because it's 2 knits, then topped on 2 purls, etc. So you're kind of reversing the rib, then you would have probably just caught that mistake on your own. I just wasn't thinking. I was like, okay, I'll follow the pattern. It must know what it's doing. And that wasn't correct. The other thing with this is last night I was working on it late. I really wanted to get to the next increase round for the front V-neck here. And I ended up messing up the last panel because those edge stitches that are next to the body stitch markers in the middle are really throwing me off because they're always a knit or a purl. And then sometimes I'll just get into a zone where then I'm like, okay, well, I did a knit, so then the next stitch needs to be a purl, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you do a knit followed by another knit because you need to maintain the moss. So thankfully I had only messed that up on the left panel here, and I'll insert a picture. So it wasn't across the whole body, or I think I would have caught it a lot faster, but I had done 2 rounds where I had a column of 4 knit stitches on top of each other. So all I did to fix that was, rather than tinking back 2 full rounds of 300 stitches almost, I decided to just take out that front panel. So like I tinked back to the marker for the edge stitch on the body, and then I used a crochet hook. I laddered down and I just reversed. So the knit stitches, I turned them into purls. The purls, I turned them into knits. It's a pain because you have to keep turning your work on every single stitch. But it took me about an hour to do. I think that panel's about 50 stitches. Not the worst thing, definitely much faster than tinking back on 2 rows. And now it doesn't look perfect. I think the stitches sometimes look a little bit gapey and wonky now, but I think in blocking that will even out. And as I'm working more rows and the yarn is moving around, I imagine that will start to smooth itself out. So that's the Ppoppo jacket. I am so excited to have this in my wardrobe. I think this is a piece I'm just really going to try to prioritize because it's not taking me that long to knit. And I think if I just put some dedicated time into it, I can have it in probably a few weeks to wear. I also think because the stitches, when this is on your body, the arm is already quite far down because it's meant to have this like drapey, oversized look. The sleeves are probably not going to take any time at all to do. Yeah, the I-cord might be one of the most painful parts, but nothing is probably going to top doing an I-cord across a whole milady's dress. So I feel a little bit immune now to I-cords. They don't bother me as much because as long as a piece isn't that big, yeah, what is it? A few hours of work. So yes, Ppoppo jacket. Love it. Super happy. And definitely, if you have a chance to use this yarn combo or at least the VIP yarn, I highly recommend. It is, I didn't say what it was, 80% merino and 20% cashmere. So really nice blend. You can definitely feel that cashmere. It's the most luxurious yarn that I've ever used. And I would love to make just a whole sweater out of this. I wanted to pop back in and give an update that I forgot while I was talking about my Ppoppo jacket. So last episode I said I was frustrated that I was working this on my Addy click needles and that I would have to invest in new cords if I wanted to use ChiaoGoo's with 5.5 needles because my set only goes up to 5. And everybody, like so many people left me comments saying, actually the ChiaoGoo's have an adapter to work with the large needle tips on the smaller cables. So I went ahead and bought those immediately, and now I am working on my ChiaoGoo's, which is awesome. But be extra, extra careful if you use these adapters because you have your kind of main piece here, then your adapter, and then your needle. And so there's like 3 parts twisted together. And so you need to make sure that it's extra, extra tight. When I joined my body, that's when I switched to these, and I was on my 2nd row and my needle fell apart and I ended up losing 30 stitches at a very critical time because I had also just added a bunch of stitches for the underarms. So I managed to save it, thankfully, but definitely now I'm a little bit paranoid using these. So I do check like every 10 rows or so that they still are tight. So it's just something to be mindful of. That means that I can use all my cords and then just buy the bigger needle tips as I need them. So huge lifesaver, still obviously costs a bit more money, but I much prefer these needles to my Addy clicks. So just wanted to say that. Thank you for the recommendations, and good for everybody else to know if you weren't aware of that either. And the final whip for today, I don't really have a ton to show on it. It is just the starting of a penny glove by Petite Knit. And I'm knitting this on the Filcolana Alva yarn in color 112, which is this kind of dark chocolatey, almost purple brown, I would say. And it is 100% alpaca lace weight yarn. I think technically in Ravelry it's called a fingering, but this is definitely light fingering. So it's 175 meters for 25 grams. And yeah, all I've done, so this is the full cuff now. And I'm at the point where I'm going to be splitting for the thumb. So I think from what you do increases. And then once you're done those increase rounds, you put your thumb on hold, work the rest of the body to get up to here, and then come back and work your thumb hole. So these are fingerless gloves. I have meant to make these for at least the last 2 years. I've had the yarn since last year, which I bought in a Garntopia sale, and it's just kind of been sitting there. I think it's like socks, just the idea of making 2. These are 3mm needles, and just, yeah, the idea of making such a small project on Magic Loop, I wasn't really feeling, but I wanted a small project. I wanted to just do something I already had yarn for, and so when I was tired of working on my Braidy loop sleeves last week, I think I'd finally finished the cuff. I decided Saturday I'll just switch over and cast on a tiny project that I can knit as I get bored of my other stuff and when I just want to work on stockinette. So yeah, I am holding the Alva double, which is what the pattern calls for. This is the same yarn she suggests. She has a few in there. I think also a cashmere, which I could see being really nice. So if I do get a lot of wear out of these, I think I would make a second pair in cashmere or maybe find a different pattern and make that pattern. I also think this could be a nice gift knit. It's just a one size fits all. I don't know how true that is. I know a lot of people have knit it, so maybe you can weigh in. Penny gloves, nice small knit. Happy to have that, and I am kind of ready to get back into accessories. I also have a couple balls of Katja concept yarn. I think it's like a merino cashmere as well that I want to make a shawl out of. And so I think I will cast that on soon as well, just to have another small project. And then just final update, and I'm not actually gonna get into any detail on this. I talked last podcast about my freestyle shirt where I used the wrong yarn. It's DK weight when it should be fingering because I messed up with what I bought. It's too oversized. I got a lot of great feedback from all of you on what I should do with it. You all helped point me in the right direction that I was already thinking, which is I'm just going to frog this. I'm not going to wear it anyway this year. If I put it aside and I don't order the extra yarn now, and then I decide I do want to pick this back up and just tink back to where I was, or like tink back to a point where I can decrease the increases in the body to remove out that extra width, then chances are I won't be able to get the dye lot that I need for the extra balls of yarn. And there are plenty of other DK weight tops that I can make with the quantity of yarn that I already have. So for example, I could definitely make a Tolsta tee, and I think that's what I might do next year. I actually have the pattern for that already. The quantity here is enough, and I think what I could do is just probably add in the details that I want. Like the Tolsta also is a raglan, so if I want to keep the pearl raglan stitches, then I'll just do them as pearls like the Freestyle Shirt. I think I can also do the neckline and body with the folded trim in the same way as well. So yeah, maybe I just take the Tolsta, modify it a bit for this specific yarn weight, and try to get closer to the Freestyle Shirt rather than trying to actually modify the Freestyle Shirt fingering weight pattern into a DK weight. Thank you for all the advice. That will be getting frogged. Sad, but I love the yarn color and I think it will make a beautiful top next year. Moving into plans and acquisitions, I'm gonna focus this primarily around an update on my fall knitting plans. So like I said at the start, I talked a lot in those fall plans about ideas of what I wanted to make, the general patterns that I was thinking about, kind of in the category of warm layers, elevated basics, and skirts and dresses. I now kind of have more concrete plans, at least for the next month. I don't want to overwhelm myself with whips, but I think I'm at a nice point where a lot of my other projects are moving along pretty quickly now. I will be done them soon, so I can really start thinking about what comes next. The next project I'm going to cast on is the staple skirt by New Wave Knitting, also Jeanette Gaudreau, I think is her name on Ravelry. And I did a poll on Instagram for what yarn I should use because I really want to use something brand new to me, DK weight, and something that would hold up well with wear because you're obviously going to be moving in this, sitting in it. It needs to kind of stand up against that heavy wear. And I got some amazing suggestions, one being the Rosa Pomar or Retrosario Rosa Pomar Vovo yarn, which is honestly, I saw this label and was like, okay, well, that's the yarn. I definitely need that. Vovo, and I might be pronouncing that wrong, translates to grandma in Portuguese. So this is a yarn brand originating out of Portugal. I've heard of them before. I've always wanted to try them. And now that I've seen how adorable all the labels are, I am definitely going to be trying more. So I really considered all the colors that I could get for this and landed on this color 07. It's more pinkish purple than I was hoping for from the pictures, but it's still a dark enough, winey kind of color that I think it will suit me and go with a lot of my tops. So I'm gonna push forward on this. The pattern for the staple skirt is a made to measure pattern. So you download the pattern, you do your measurements similar to what I did for the Milady's dress. So you have your waist, your hips, then the length you want the skirt to be, and then a couple other measurements for the spacing between your waist and hips, and then your hips and the hem of the skirt. So you put in those measurements, you do your gauge swatch on literally any yarn that you want to use on any needle size. So I decided to swatch this on a 4mm needle because I really wanted it to be dense enough that you weren't going to see through it and that it would like really feel like a substantial, well-made skirt. So I probably could have gone up to 4.5 on this, but decided to do 4. I'm really happy with how this turned out. My gauge is about 21 by 30 stitches. And I put all that into the pattern because I couldn't really get the total yardage or meterage for the yarn until I had done my gauge swatch. But she did put in some suggestions for, okay, based on if you do a DK weight skirt or a fingering weight at this typical size, so 36 to 38 European size, you would need roughly, I think it said, 750 meters. So I bought my yarn quantity with the assumption that I would be knitting kind of a DK weight, and I even bought enough yarn to go up to the next size just in case, assuming that I would be covered. Then I put all my measurements and my gauge swatch measurements into the pattern, and it spit back out not the 700 or so meters I was expecting, but 932 meters. So I definitely do not have enough yarn. I only bought 5 balls of this, and it is 50 grams for 143 meters. So I debated if I should re-gauge swatch at a 4.5 or 5 millimeter needle and then try and maybe even reduce the hem length and maybe try to get the skirt to work within the size or the yarn quantity that I have. But I decided I really, really like the 4 millimeter needles here. I don't want to have to compromise on being happy with the final product. So I decided to just bite the bullet and go ahead and buy 2 more balls of this. I'm really hoping that the pattern is not wrong and there's not an error in the calculation somewhere. Not enough people have knit this skirt to be able to really say within the Ravelry notes if anything has gone wrong for them. I hope that the quantity it's giving me is not incorrect and that I do actually need the extra balls, because if not, I'm going to be quite annoyed, because trying to find color 07 was incredibly difficult. It was sold out on Rosa Pomar's site. It was sold out basically anywhere I could find it other than one store in Belgium, and the shipping there was 10 euros per order, which is crazy. So I paid 10 euros on the first 5 balls and then another 10 euros on the second 2 balls. And these were only 7 euros each. So I, on that second order, paid almost as much in shipping as the yarn cost. So I don't love that. But for some reason I just got really, really stuck on this specific color when I saw it. So it is what it is. It's more than I would have wanted to spend on this skirt, because I think now I'll be at, I think like 70 euros or so for this, plus the pattern. But hopefully I'm gonna be happy with the final product. I do think I'll get a lot of wear out of it. So yeah, I'm just hoping for the best. And the new yarn should be here, I think, in the next couple days. I wanted to make a bit more progress on the Braidy loop and Ppoppo Jacket before officially casting this on. But I think now I'm ready. I feel good about where the other projects are, and therefore new project coming in soon. Then the other project that I had said was really, really high on my list for my fall plans, but I am really waffling on, is remaking that Cezanne dress with a knitting pattern that was a sweater that I can turn into a dress. So I decided on the Bruno sweater to turn into that dress style that I wanted, and I wasn't sure what yarn to use, because something I've noticed with Mareka Knits patterns is she has a tendency to use a lot of Cardiff cashmere. And I noticed this with Irene Lynn as well. They both knit a lot of their samples in Cardiff cashmere and then don't give any other yarn recommendation, which personally, it's a pet peeve of mine, because I mean, knitting something in Cardiff cashmere is so expensive, and while I would love to do that for every sweater, it's not realistic from a budget perspective. So I really wish that when designers did that, they would at least suggest, okay, but this other yarn is similar. I think when she did her test knit, I think it seems like a lot of the test knitters also got gifted Cardiff cashmere or just decided to use it. So there's not enough patterns in Ravelry to really get a sense of what other yarn could be used for this. So I'm just really struggling with how best to choose the yarn for this. I decided, based on my fall knitting plans video, you all gave me a lot of great advice. A common theme was to use Filcolana, our Weta yarn, which is 80% merino, 20% nylon, I believe. And I already have some of that in stash, actually in the color that I decided I think I want to go with, which is the light truffle. It's the same color as my sweater number 8. And then a lot of people also recommended, I did a poll for this on Instagram as well, to find a 100% alpaca lace weight, and a lot of people recommended the Filcolana Alva, which I'm using for my penny gloves. So I was like, okay, I have both these yarns in stash. I will swatch them up on the recommended needles and see how I feel. So I did not get gauge, and ignore the color on this because I would not use these two colors together. But I find this is too drapey, or too gapey for a dress, but I already have too many stitches here. So I would need to go down to a 3.5mm needle to get gauge and also probably get the density that I want. But then knitting this whole dress on 3.5mm needles doesn't thrill me. So I think what I would rather do is try to find maybe a different yarn combo, maybe even switch to a mohair to kind of fill out the spaces a little bit. But I'm also just questioning now if this is the right pattern to go with and if it's the right style for me. So Goodknits collars tend to be lower sitting than I think I want, and this Bruno sweater pattern definitely has that as well. And then the other thing I'm just not sure of is I really like the style of the sweater dress, but I don't actually know if it will look good on me or if it'll just look like a shapeless bag. So I decided before I go through the whole hassle of buying more yarn, swatching for this, I am just going to order the original dress from Cezanne. I wanted to do a big order anyway, so I just added that to it. I should be getting it. I was hoping it'd be here today, but it's not. So hopefully I'll get that in the next few days. I will take some video of myself in it, and then let's see if that style even works for me. Because if that dress, which is the inspiration, doesn't look good, then there's no point in me pursuing this as a actual pattern. So I figured that was the best way to go. Okay, the Cezanne package showed up this morning, which I wasn't expecting, and since I haven't finished editing this video yet, I figured I would just go ahead and do the try on now rather than waiting a few weeks, and you can help me make the decision. I do think, though, I am already pretty set on what I'm gonna do, but let me know your thoughts. So let me show this to you, and then you guys can weigh in. So mini dress, and it is pretty shapeless. So this is just straight down. I think it's more fitted in the body for sure. And I like the neckline. I actually quite like the fit of the drop shoulder, but I don't think, because I'm not really curvy in this area already, I don't think this shape is doing anything for me. So perhaps if I cinched it in a bit, it would work. So if I did some body shaping, I think maybe it could be nice, but then definitely not as much positive ease as I was originally thinking. I think the length is good, but it's just the shapelessness that's not working for me, and makes sense. Usually oversized doesn't. I do quite like the yarn combination. So this is actually just 68% brushed alpaca, I think 30-something% polyamide, and a little bit of something else. And I think I could definitely just make this in a lace weight held together with drops brushed alpaca, and that would actually be perfect for this dress. And maybe I'll just use that combo actually for a sweater, because this is super cozy. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a no, unfortunately. I just think I need to find a shape that works a bit better on me. Maybe even find a dress pattern that actually will just work without having to modify a sweater. And I have so many other things on my list for this year, so I'm going to push this aside. Perhaps I'll make the Bruno sweater as just a sweater because now I have the pattern. Thank you so much to Katie for that. But yeah, I'm glad that I ordered the dress so I didn't put all the effort into making this and then being unhappy. It was definitely smart to just get it, try it on, and then make a decision from there. It makes it quite easy. But let me know, is it maybe a good fit if I just do some shaping and less ease? If so, maybe I'll do it more for winter. That's it. Back to the normal podcast. Then the other plan that I'm going to be proceeding with is the zipper sweater light by Petite Knit. And I'm actually going to do a mini-KAL with my friend Karen that I had the knitting date with last week. We both ordered our yarn this week. I ended up getting, what did I get? Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in the color Nougat, but like the melange version where it's a little bit heathered. So I didn't want too dark brown. I didn't want too light. And I actually really struggled to get yarn for this project. The Sadness Garn Peer Gynt just didn't really have the color palette I wanted. I originally was thinking I would do like a deep Bordeaux color, but Sadness didn't have that at all. Then Filcolana did, but I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know. I was like, maybe I'll try to bring the cost down even further on this project and I will go with a drops yarn. So either drops Nepal or drops Charisma. The Charisma is a superwash though. So even though the color range was better, I decided I didn't really want that. So then I looked at the drops Nepal, which I've used before. It's a little bit scratchy, but it would make the garment like half the price, because the sweater does eat up quite a lot of yarn. And unfortunately, there just wasn't any dark enough browns that I didn't already own. So like I have a hat in the, I think, dark taupe color, and it's not my favorite. I honestly I would have made drops Nepal work if I could have found a color that was speaking to me, but there wasn't one. So then I went back to Filcolana and decided maybe Bordeaux wouldn't be as versatile in my wardrobe, but they had a lot of really beautiful shades of brown that were much closer to what I wanted if I went on a darker color range. And so, yeah, I ended up with the Nougat. I was thinking of the deep chocolate or deep cocoa, but also it would be much harder to see my stitches. So that yarn should be here this week. That is the plan, is casting on the staple skirt, starting on the zipper sweater for the mini-KAL with my friend. And I think those are the two projects I'm going to focus on right now. Then the only other acquisition that I have is a very random one. So I have been doing a lot of knitting lately, and I in general have a lot of neck and shoulder pain. So I've had this since I was a teenager. I have horrible posture. I've worked at a desk since I was 17. I think I go to physio all the time, but lately with how much knitting I've been doing, and I think I've been sitting really badly and not paying attention to holding my shoulders back, I was feeling a ton of neck pain and just kind of desperate for any way to relieve that. So I went to physio, but then also I was getting served a lot of ads by this company called Shakti, which has these acupressure mats, but also acupressure pillows. So I got a little bit influenced. I think also Celine from Uzi by Celine did a partnership with them. And so I saw that and was like, okay, well, another knitter is using it. Maybe it would help me. So I bought this on a whim. I think it was 49 euros, and I got it on Monday and have been using it the last couple days. And I will say, it's still early days, but I do feel like it's doing something. That might be in my head, but basically what you do is you lay down and put your neck on it, and then you're meant to kind of lay there for 20 minutes. You can move your head a little bit back and forth, but the needles put pressure on your neck and shoulders and are supposed to relieve stress, help you with sleep. There's a whole bunch of benefits. The first couple minutes suck. It's painful. You're just like, why am I doing this to myself? But I do kind of get that not euphoric feeling after the first few minutes, but definitely you can start to ease into it, and I feel like it's working. So I had horrible pain on Sunday. Like I could barely move my neck. And I started this Monday. I used it Monday, Tuesday. It's now Wednesday. And I do feel like I've gotten a bit of movement back. So I'm gonna commit to using this every day for 7 days and see how I feel. And then I will report back. So this is in no way sponsored. There's no promo code. I'm not being paid for this. I'm just saying that maybe if you also have pain, this is something that you might want to give a try. They do have a pretty generous return policy as well. And I think the mats are the more common thing because my pain was pretty much isolated to my neck and shoulders. I decided to just go with the pillow for now. If this works, I do think I'll end up ordering the mat as well. And it's just a nice way to kind of meditate. So I don't know, put on a little sound bowl therapy on a YouTube video, lay on this, or I don't know, what I did yesterday was watch 90 Day Fiance, and that made the time go by very quickly. That is my random purchase. My physio also just keeps saying, why don't you just stop knitting? Like if this is causing you pain, why are you doing it? It's a great question, but I love knitting and there's absolutely no way that I am giving that up. So instead, I will buy maybe slightly ridiculous items in the hope that they will relieve some pain for me. If you guys also have the same kind of neck and shoulder pain from knitting, if there's other things that you're doing to help relieve that, I know I should be taking more breaks, the whole like pulling your head to the side. I also do this stretch on the wall where you kind of pull your shoulder out. But other than that, probably doing less knitting would be the thing that would help the most. But let me know your tips and tricks. I am open to other ideas and potentially products. Okay, I was hoping for a shorter episode today, but my camera is currently saying this is around an hour. I'm sure it won't be that by the time I edit. I did get a little bit chatty. I think, you know, in general, I have such high knitting mojo right now. I am really excited to be working on everything I'm working on and everything I have planned. So it's hard not to talk about that and share that love right now. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and comment as always. And if you want to stick around, I'd love if you subscribe and turn on bell notifications. I post new podcast episodes roughly every 2 to 3 weeks. I'm trying to get much better about posting every 2 weeks because I've had so much to say lately and I don't want every episode to be really long. And then also I have a whole bunch of content ideas, including sharing with you guys how much I made on YouTube in my first year. I did a survey through the community tab here, and that seemed to be a video that quite a lot of you were interested in. So I do want to go ahead and film that in October once I've officially hit my 1 year of monetization. Please stick around and I will see you in the next episode.